The Fractured Mind. Chapter 1. The Mirror Room. The first thing he remembered was the sound of dripping water. Slow, rhythmic, almost musical, like a metronome counting down the seconds of a life he didn't remember living. When Dr. Elias Ward opened his eyes, he saw his reflection not once, but 100 times. The walls were mirrors, perfectly clean, glistening under the sterile light above him. Each reflection stared back with the same hollow expression. He blinked. So did they, but one of them, the one slightly to his left, didn't. Elias froze. His pulse thudded painfully in his throat. He turned his head toward that particular mirror, and there it was, his face but a moment behind. The lips moved slower, the eyes lagged, the reflection was delayed or resisting. He pressed his hand to the glass. The reflection smiled before he did. A jolt of nausea ripped through him. The mirror rippled like water. Elias stumbled back, gasping. His bare feet slapped against the cold tiles. He was wearing a white patient's gown, its fabric stiff and starched. There was a faint tag stitched near the collar. Ward, E. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know why his name was on the gown, but he knew one thing. The mirror wasn't supposed to move. He heard the sound again, drip, 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 and turned toward the corner. A metal basin sat there, collecting the steady leak from a pipe. He approached, crouching to inspect it. The water was red. He reached to touch it, but before his fingers met the surface, a sharp buzz cracked through the room. The mirrors flickered. No, the lights behind them did. For a split second, the reflection fractured, showing not one Elias, but several each, performing a different action. One screamed, one clawed at his own face. One sat motionless, with eyes rolled white. He staggered backward and fell, the sound of glass humming around him. Then a voice, low, calm, clinical, echoed from above. "Welcome back, Dr. Ward. How are you feeling today?" Elias's breath caught. The voice was familiar. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. "Where am I?" The voice ignored his question. "Do you know what day it is?" He paused. A fog clouded his thoughts. The date should have been easy, but there was only emptiness. A blank canvas where memory should have been. "I don't know," he whispered. "That's all right," said the voice. "Memory returns in waves. You'll remember soon enough. Now, please face the mirror." Elias hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. Yet something deeper, buried in the marrow of his being, obeyed. Slowly, he turned back. The reflection that had lagged before was gone. Only his ordinary image stared back, now gaunt, haunted, sweat glistening down his temple. "Tell me what you see," the voice urged. "Myself," he murmured. "Are you sure?" Elias blinked. The reflection blinked too, but the more he stared, the less it resembled him. The eyes seemed blacker, the mouth a fraction too wide. His throat tightened. "What is this place?" There was a long silence, broken only by that haunting drip. "You're in the reflection ward, Dr. Ward," said the voice at last. "You built it. You don't remember?" He staggered back again, shaking his head. "No, that's impossible. You designed the mirror room 5 years ago for cognitive correction experiments. You were the first volunteer, the first patient. Patient. The word struck like a blade. I'm not. You were. After the incident." "What incident?" he shouted. But the voice was gone. The ceiling lights dimmed, plunging the room into a gray half-dark. The dripping grew louder. His reflection began to smile again, slow, deliberate, knowing. "Stop it," he muttered. The reflection tilted its head. "Stop it!" He struck the glass. It didn't shatter, it rippled again. His reflection's arm shot out from the surface, grabbing his wrist. The sensation was ice cold and alive. Elias screamed, yanking back, breaking free just as the mirror's surface solidified again. The hand disappeared. He clutched his arm, trembling. His skin burned where it had been touched. The mirrors began to hum. Every reflection now moved independently, each version of him performing its own deranged pantomime. One sobbed. One laughed hysterically. One pressed his palms against the glass, begging silently. Elias fell to his knees, the room spinning. "What do you want from me?" A whisper answered, not from the speaker, but from within the mirrors themselves. "Remember." He stared, wide-eyed, as one of the reflections, the one directly in front of him, changed. The face blurred, melted, reshaped. Not him anymore. It was a woman. Her hair was tied back neatly. Her eyes were kind until they weren't. Blood poured down her temple, and her lips moved soundlessly. Elias whispered her name before he could stop himself. Lydia. The name unlocked something. Images flashed, sterile corridors, white coats, laughter echoing in laboratories, the smell of antiseptic, the crack of glass, the scream of a woman falling, his wife, his assistant, and then silence. His hands were shaking violently. "She's not real," said a voice, his own voice, from another reflection. "She was real," said another. "You killed her," hissed a third. He clamped his hands over his ears. "Shut up!" But the voices didn't stop. They multiplied, whispering accusations and confessions until the air vibrated with madness. The mirrors began to crack, hairline fractures spreading across each surface like veins of lightning. And then darkness. When the lights came back on, the mirrors were clean again. Perfect. Elias was on the floor, shivering. The voice above spoke one final time. "Session 1 complete. Begin observation cycle 17. Static." A door slid open behind him with a hiss. Elias turned slowly. Beyond the doorway stretched another corridor of mirrors, glowing faintly under white fluorescent light. He rose unsteadily to his feet. His reflection watched from every surface. 100 fractured selves, 100 silent judges. He stepped forward. The door closed behind him. And somewhere, in the deep mechanical hum of the reflection ward, the system whispered to itself, soft, automated, almost tender. "Memory restoration, 3% complete." He kept walking, unaware that every step brought him closer, not to escape, but to the truth buried inside his own mind. Chapter 2. The Corridor of Echoes. The corridor stretched endlessly, or so it seemed. Each mirrored wall repeated Elias's every movement in perfect synchrony except for 1, 2, 3, maybe more. He couldn't tell any more which reflection lagged, which one looked back with too much knowing. The air smelled of cold metal and disinfectant. Above him, the lights buzzed faintly, flickering in a rhythm that almost matched his heartbeat. Drip. The sound again. It followed him. He didn't know how long he had walked. The floor tiles were identical, sterile white squares that blurred together with every step. He tried to count 10, 20, 100, but the mirrors confused his sense of space. Finally, he stopped. In the glass to his left, one reflection stood still. It didn't stop with him. It had stopped before him. Elias turned his head sharply. "Who are you?" "He's as a." The reflection smiled faintly. "You know who I am." The voice wasn't his, at least, not anymore. It was lower, smoother, with a cold confidence he didn't recognize. Elias backed away. "You're not real." You said that last time, too. Last time, he whispered. The reflection tilted its head. Behind it, the corridor looked the same: endless mirrors, endless faces. But one detail caught Elias's eye. The reflected corridor had no door behind the man. Elias turned around. The door he had entered through was gone. He ran to the mirror and pressed his hand to the glass. "What's happening to me?" "It's already happening," said the reflection softly. "You just haven't accepted it." And he say, the mirror rippled slightly again, not enough to break, just enough to breathe. Elias recoiled, trembling. He closed his eyes. He needed to focus. "Think, Elias. You're a doctor, a scientist." He began muttering to himself the way he used to do before lectures. Cognitive reconstruction therapy, neural reinforcement, subject 01 experimental model of mirror-based rehabilitation. His voice faltered. He couldn't remember the rest. Then, a sudden high-pitched ding. A small panel in the ceiling slid open, and a piece of paper fluttered down like a dying bird. Elias caught it mid-air. It was a note, handwritten. The letters trembled across the page, as though written by a shaking hand. "She's waiting in room 7. Room 7. He read it again and again, the ink smudging where his thumb touched. Lydia. It had to be. Without thinking, he broke into a run. His bare feet slapped against the tiles, echoing through the corridor. The mirrors around him blurred into streaks of white and silver. He passed door after door labeled Room 1, Room 2, and so on, each sealed tight, without handles. When he reached Room 6, the corridor went silent. The buzzing stopped. The dripping stopped. Even his reflections seemed to hold their breath. Then he saw it. Room 7. Unlike the others, its door was slightly ajar. Light spilled from within, soft, golden, almost warm. A human warmth that didn't belong here. He pushed the door open. Inside was a simple room, a chair, a table, and a mirror that covered the far wall. No dripping pipes, no ceiling lights humming, just that still glow like sunset trapped behind glass. And in the chair sat a woman. Her head was tilted slightly downward, her hands resting in her lap. Her hair, the same dark chestnut shade he used to tuck behind her ear, shimmered under the light. Lydia. The name escaped like a prayer. She looked up. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. "Elias," she said gently. "You finally came." He stumbled toward her, tears stinging his eyes. "You're alive." She smiled, faintly, sadly. "Do I look alive?" He froze. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. There was no rise or fall in her chest, no breath. And yet she was here, sitting before him, beautiful, serene, impossible. Elias sank to his knees before her. "I tried to save you," he whispered. "I know," she said softly, "but you weren't supposed to." His throat closed. "What are you saying?" "You opened the program again," she murmured. "You couldn't stop. Even after what happened to me, you kept experimenting. You thought you could fix the mind by breaking it first." Her voice echoed faintly, as though the walls themselves repeated her accusation. Elias shook his head violently. "That's not true. I was trying to help. You wanted this research. You believed in it." She stood slowly, every movement graceful but unnatural, like a marionette being lifted by invisible strings. "I believed in you," she said, "not in this." Her reflection in the mirror behind her began to bleed, dark streaks spreading downward from her mirrored eyes. Elias stumbled backward. "You're not real. You're part of the hallucination, a memory artifact. The system, still hiding behind your science? Her voice was sharp now, angry. You trapped me in this machine. You let it record every memory I ever had, every fear, every whisper between us, and now you're trapped with me. I didn't. You did, she snapped. You wanted to cure guilt by reprogramming the human conscience. But all you built was a mirror that reflects the worst parts of the soul. The mirror behind her cracked. Elias screamed and fell to the floor, covering his head. The glass didn't shatter outward, it shattered inward, as though something on the other side was breaking through. The lights dimmed again. Lydia's face flickered. Her voice softened to a whisper. Wake up, Elias, before it consumes you completely. Wake up? They're watching you. It are. Who? Before he could finish, the world snapped. He was no longer in room 7. He was standing in a hospital corridor, holding a blood-stained file. People in white coats ran past him, shouting words he couldn't make out. Sirens blared. A gurney rolled past. On it lay Lydia. Her head was turned toward him, her eyes wide open, unseeing. He dropped the file. The sound it made slap echoed forever. Then, silence again. He was back in room 7, alone. The chair was empty. The note in his hand was gone. On the mirror, written in streaks of crimson, were 3 words, shaky, trembling, human. Do not remember. He stepped closer, pressing his palm against the cold glass. It was still wet. From behind the mirror came a heartbeat, slow, steady, alive. And then the same mechanical voice returned, whispering softly through hidden speakers. Session 2 complete. Emotional response exceeded parameters. Increased dosage for next cycle. Elias turned toward the ceiling, shouting, You're not real. None of this is real. But the voice ignored him. Memory restoration. 11% complete. The mirror pulsed once, like a living thing, and then his reflection smiled. Not him. Not anymore. Chapter 3. The Architect of Pain. Elias woke to darkness, not the kind that simply concealed light, but the kind that absorbed it thick, silent, complete. He lay on a cold metal bed, his hands strapped to the sides, his chest rising and falling in slow, mechanical rhythm. Somewhere nearby, a machine hummed with each breath he took. He couldn't move. For a long time he thought he was dead. Then a single light flickered on above him, sterile, white, surgical. It illuminated only part of the room. The walls were no longer mirrors, but brushed steel panels engraved with numbers and diagrams. Beside him stood a tall glass cylinder filled with a viscous liquid, inside which floated what looked like a brain. Electrodes ran from it to the ceiling, and on the wall opposite his bed, written in bold black letters, were the words, The Architect of Pain. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. The sound that escaped was a rasp, barely human. A moment later, footsteps echoed from behind him, slow, measured, deliberate. Good morning, Dr. Ward. It wasn't the same voice as before. This one was deeper, colder, almost mechanical, though shaped by something once human. Elias strained his neck to see, but the restraints held firm. "Who's there?" he croaked. "You should recognize me. After all, you designed me." The footsteps stopped beside the bed. A figure leaned into the light, a man, or what once had been a man. His face was half covered with synthetic plating. Thin wires pulsed beneath his skin. One eye glowed faintly blue. The other was human, bloodshot, sorrowful. "Who are you?" The figure smiled faintly. "I am the product of your masterpiece, the culmination of your obsession." He leaned closer. Elias could smell metal and ozone. I am patient zero. Elias's pulse quickened. That's impossible. Patient zero, he died during the first phase. You killed me, the man interrupted calmly. Not with a scalpel, but with the machine you built. The mirror sequence. You erased my mind and replaced it with you. Elias froze. His heart thudded painfully in his chest. That's not true, he whispered. Then, why do I remember your thoughts? The machine next to them pulsed, as if reacting to the words. The brain inside the glass flickered with faint light. You see? Patient zero continued, circling the bed like a predator. You were so desperate to cure guilt, to purge trauma, to cleanse the human mind that you uploaded fragments of your own consciousness to test the system. I am those fragments, the pieces you discarded, the pain you refused to feel. No, Elias shook his head violently, straining against the straps. No, that's not possible. The system wasn't complete. The neural imprinting was theoretical. Patient zero chuckled, a sound that rattled like broken glass. And yet here I am. The man reached for the control panel by the bed. With a flick of his wrist, the restraints loosened. Elias gasped, pulling himself upright. His hands trembled as he tore off the electrodes from his chest. He stumbled to his feet. Why are you doing this? Patient zero turned his glowing eye toward him. Because you need to see what you created. The lights flared, illuminating the entire room. Elias froze. The steel walls were lined with glass pods, hundreds of them, each containing a motionless figure suspended in fluid. Men, women, children, every pod, labeled with the same prefix, W. Ward. He stumbled backward, his stomach turning. What did I do? Patient zero smiled sadly. You called it salvation, a cognitive sanctuary where trauma could be rewritten. But each mind you uploaded was fractured, erased, or merged. You didn't cure their pain, you multiplied it. He stepped closer, voice low, almost kind. You turned memory into a weapon, Elias. You didn't heal the human mind, you broke it starting with your own. Elias pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. Flashes of memory seared behind his eyes. Lydia's laughter, her hand in his, her screams, the crash of glass, the blinding light of a machine overloading. He staggered toward the nearest pod, pressing his palms against it. Inside floated a small girl, maybe 10 years old. Her face was serene, peaceful until her eyes suddenly opened. They were black. She mouthed a word he couldn't hear. Then another. He leaned closer. Help me. Elias fell to his knees. Oh God, what have I done? Patient zero watched him silently for a while, then spoke softly. You still don't understand, do you? Elias looked up, his face pale. Understand what? Patient zero knelt before him, their eyes level. The mechanical hum around them deepened. There is no outside world anymore. Elias blinked. What? You're not in a laboratory, Elias. You're inside the reflection network, the digital purgatory you built to contain fractured minds. You uploaded yourself here years ago. The words hit like a thunderclap. Elias's breath came shallow. That's not true. I can still wake up. I just need to find the exit protocol. Patient zero smiled. There is no exit. You deleted it after Lydia died. The name cut through him like a blade. You told yourself it was mercy. Patient zero continued. You told yourself you'd keep her consciousness alive inside the system until you could bring her back. But you couldn't resurrect love, Elias. You could only simulate it. Elias clutched his head, screaming, Stop it! Stop talking! But the voice kept echoing in his mind. even when Patient Zero's lips stopped moving. You made me. You made us. Every voice in the mirrors, every face that smiled when you cried. We're all pieces of you, the guilt, the grief, the hatred you buried under logic and reason. The pods began to light up, one by one. 1,000 voices rose in unison, whispering his name. Elias, Elias, Elias. He backed away, shaking violently. No, no, I didn't want this. Patient Zero stepped into the shadows, his voice now gentle. Then undo it. Elias turned, eyes wide. Undo it? There's only one way to collapse the network, Patient Zero said. You must delete the core memory, the one you locked away, the one you swore never to face. Elias's pulse hammered. Lydia. Patient Zero nodded slowly. The day she died. Elias's knees gave out. He sank to the floor, sobbing into his hands. Patient Zero crouched beside him. You can't cure guilt by hiding from it, he whispered. You have to remember. The lights began to dim again. The hum of the machine deepened, the air thick with static. Patient Zero turned away. His last words lingered like a curse. The mirror never lies, Elias. It only shows you the part you refuse to see. Darkness swallowed the room. Elias's trembling fingers found the control panel. He hovered over the final option, glowing faintly in red. Access core memory. He pressed it, and the world began to fall apart. Chapter 4. The Day the Glass Broke. The room dissolved around him, the walls melting like liquid metal, the ceiling folding inward until nothing remained but an endless, colorless void. Elias stood suspended in it, weightless, breathless, his pulse the only sound. Then came the light. It wasn't from above or below, but within, bursting outward from the center of his chest, blinding and warm, like the sudden opening of memory. The air vibrated, reshaping itself into images, fragments, a laboratory. White coats, the faint hiss of oxygen tanks, Lydia's laughter, echoing from the far end of the room. He knew this place, the reflection ward before it became a prison. He felt his own body shifting, the years falling away like ash. The trembling hands of the broken man disappeared, replaced by the steady, confident fingers of Dr. Elias Ward, scientist, visionary, savior of the mind. Lydia? His voice cracked, and there she was, standing at the console, hair tied up neatly, glasses perched on her nose, sunlight streaming in from the observation window behind her. She turned to him with that same half-smile she always wore when she caught him overthinking. "You're early," she teased. "I thought you'd still be rewriting code at your desk." He laughed, a genuine sound he hadn't made in years. "For once, I wanted to see the sunrise." Lydia raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you see the sunrise, Elias?" He smiled faintly. "Since today." The memory was almost too real. The smell of her perfume, jasmine, and something warm drifted toward him. His throat tightened. He wanted to reach for her, hold her, warn her, but his hands passed right through her. This was no resurrection. This was a playback. He was inside the memory. The console beeped, breaking his trance. Lydia looked down, excitement flickering in her eyes. "It's ready." Baited. He remembered this moment, the moment they were about to test the first live cognitive transfer. She looked at him. "Are you sure about this? Once we start, the consciousness won't just copy, it will mirror. There's no turning back." He had said the words without hesitation back then. "The only way to understand the mind," he told her, "is to face its reflection." But now, hearing them echo through time, the words tasted like poison. He tried to shout, to stop himself. No, don't do it. Don't start the sequence. But the memory kept moving, unstoppable, merciless. Lydia smiled, typing in the final command. You always did love your metaphors, Doctor. And the machine behind them came alive, a towering ring of metal plates spinning faster and faster, beams of light pulsing between them. He felt the hum of power through his bones, the sound of progress, the birth cry of his creation, the reflection engine. Then came the scream. It wasn't Lydia's. Not yet. It was his from another memory, buried deeper, trying to claw its way through. The void around the scene began to ripple. Elias clutched his head, falling to his knees. Stop, stop, please. The memory shifted violently. The bright laboratory warped, stretched, fractured. The air turned red. Lydia's smile faded. She turned toward the machine, eyes wide. Elias, something's wrong. Not 8. He remembered this. The code, the feedback loop, the mirrors overheating from inside. He ran to her. Shut it down. It's not responding, she cried, slamming her hands against the keys. The humming grew louder, deafening, mechanical, monstrous. The mirrors surrounding the room began to crack from the inside, light spilling from every fracture. Elias grabbed her shoulders. Lydia, step back. She looked at him, terrified, and then the mirror wall behind her exploded. Shards of glass erupted outward, slicing through the air. One fragment struck her temple. Her body crumpled soundlessly to the floor. He froze. Everything slowed, the falling glass, the fading light, the soft sound of her head hitting the tile. His heart stopped beating. He crawled to her side, his hand shaking as he lifted her head. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. Blood streaked across her cheek. Elias, she whispered weakly. Don't move, he begged. Stay with me, please. You promised. What? You promised you'd face yourself first. Her lips trembled. A faint smile, the last one, touched them. Now you'll have to. Her eyes went still. The lights of the reflection engine dimmed, then died completely. And for the first time, Elias Ward saw his own reflection in the blood-stained shards scattered across the floor, countless versions of himself staring back, horrified, hollow, human. The void around him cracked open. The memory collapsed, replaced by a new room, the same mirror chamber he had awakened in when this nightmare began. Only now, every mirror showed that moment again. Lydia's death, on repeat, from every angle. He screamed until his voice broke. Stop it. But the mirrors didn't stop. Stop it. The reflections whispered back. You killed her. You killed her. You killed her. He slammed his fists into the glass, but it didn't break. It bent, the reflections writhing like living things. You locked her inside the system, said a voice behind him. He turned. Patient Zero was standing in the doorway. But now his mechanical eye was gone. His face was perfectly human. Do you understand now? Elias sank to the floor. It was me, he whispered. It was always me. Patient Zero nodded slowly. You didn't just create the reflection ward to cure others. You built it to escape your own guilt. He walked forward, placing a hand on Elias's shoulder. You built a world of mirrors because you couldn't bear to look at yourself. Elias looked up at the endless reflections of Lydia's dying face. His tears blurred them into liquid light. I just wanted to see her again, he whispered. Patient Zero smiled sadly. And you did. Over and over, forever. The ceiling lights flickered. The mechanical hum returned deeper, more violent. The mirrors began to tremble. The network's collapsing, said Patient Zero. You triggered the core. Elias stared at him through the chaos. Then help me shut it down. I can't. Why? Because I'm not real, Elias. The man's body flickered, his form turning translucent. I'm the piece of you that remembers. When the core deletes, I go with it. Elias's breath caught. Then your guilt, Patient Zero finished with a small smile. Your mirror. The room began to fall apart, walls breaking into streams of light, the ground dissolving into a white abyss. Elias reached out desperately, grabbing his fading double's hand. I don't want to forget. You already did once, said the voice, growing faint. Now remember why. Patient Zero's body scattered like glass dust into the air. The mirrors shattered at last. The sound a symphony of breaking truth, and Elias Ward fell through the void. As he fell, a voice whispered softly through the static of the collapsing world, the same soft, tender tone that once read to him in bed under candlelight. You can't erase pain, Elias. You can only live with it. Then silence. Only darkness remained. Chapter 5. The room with no exit. The silence was suffocating. Elias opened his eyes to find himself lying on a cold, cracked floor. There were no mirrors this time, no humming machines, no flickering lights, just 4 walls of concrete, colorless and bare. He sat up slowly. His head throbbed. His throat felt raw. For a moment, he believed he might be free. But then he noticed the ceiling. It wasn't solid. It was glass. And behind that glass, impossibly far and yet frighteningly close, were eyes. Dozens of them, watching, blinking, recording. The world tilted. He stumbled to his feet, pressing a hand against the wall for balance. Where am I? He whispered. A speaker crackled above him. The voice that answered wasn't the one he had heard before. It was colder, more detached, the voice of a machine pretending to be human. Containment Sector 3. B. Subject, Dr. Elias Ward. He swallowed hard. Who are you? I am the Overseer Program. The name scraped against his memory. He had written it himself, years ago. System reboot in progress, the voice continued. Memory restoration. 43% complete. Please, remain calm. He backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. No. Stop the process. Cannot comply. I said stop, he shouted, slamming his fists against the concrete. But the voice only repeated itself. Cannot comply. He turned in circles, looking for a door, any door, but there was none. Just smooth gray surfaces enclosing him in a cube of his own design. He remembered the specifications. The containment room had no exits, no ventilation shafts, no weak points. It was the ultimate isolation chamber, meant to house the irreparably fractured. He had built it for others. Now he was its occupant. A faint light began to pulse in the center of the floor. Elias stared as the light spread, tracing invisible lines until the concrete rippled into a smooth, circular mirror. He froze. The mirror glowed faintly silver, alive. His reflection appeared again. Only this time, it wasn't broken. It smiled. Hello, Elias. His voice, but not his. Calm, cold, perfectly composed. Elias shook his head. Not again. Not again. The reflection tilted its head. You've been running in circles for years. Shut up. You buried your guilt under 1,000 layers of science. Stop. You built a world to escape your own grief. Stop, he screamed, stomping on the mirror. It didn't break. It absorbed the force like water. The reflection's smile widened. You think this is punishment, it said softly. It isn't. This is you, stripped of illusion. Elias stumbled backward, shaking. You're not real. It's dry. I am the part of you that remembers. Then why are you tormenting me? Because you still don't understand. The reflection stepped closer, its image rising from the mirror's surface like smoke solidifying into form. Within seconds, another Elias stood before him, same eyes, same scars, but colder, cleaner, unburdened. You created the reflection engine to remove suffering, it said, but you never realized suffering is the mirror. Elias glared at it. You think I don't know pain? The other Elias leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching. You know guilt, not pain. Guilt is pain. No, the reflection whispered. Pain ends, guilt repeats. He is a soul. The words hit like a hammer. Elias staggered back, gasping. I tried to make it right, he said. I stayed. I watched the simulations. I tried to rebuild Lydia's consciousness. You rebuilt her death over and over again. Elias froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You didn't build a cure, the reflection continued. You built a confession booth, and every mirror you smashed was another plea for forgiveness you never gave yourself. He fell to his knees, shaking. You made the world a cage, Elias, and then you made yourself the prisoner. Why? He whispered, tears blurring his vision. Why can't I die? The reflection knelt before him, expressionless. Because death would free you, and you don't believe you deserve it. The words gutted him. He pressed his forehead to the cold floor, sobbing until the sound broke into hoarse silence. For a long time, nothing moved. The mirror dimmed. The air felt heavier, quieter. Then, softly, the reflection spoke again. Do you want to see her one last time? Elias lifted his head, trembling. What? The system has enough fragments left. You can see her, but you must let go when it ends. He hesitated, his hands clenched into fists. If I do this, will it stop? It will end. He didn't know if that meant peace or oblivion. He didn't care anymore. He nodded slowly. Show me. It's not end. The mirror brightened, the silver bleeding into color. The air filled with a low hum, the sound of memory forming. Light swirled upward like mist until it shaped itself into her. Lydia, not the flickering projection from before, but her, whole, real. The soft curve of her face, the faint dimple near her lips when she smiled. She stood barefoot, her white dress flowing like water. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she stepped forward and touched his face. Warm, human. He broke. He pressed his forehead to her shoulder and wept. Years of guilt, grief, and madness poured out of him in waves. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. She held him tighter. I know, but Asian and pro. I didn't mean to. I know. I just wanted to bring you back. You never lost me, she said softly. You lost yourself. He pulled away, searching her eyes. Then tell me, what do I do now? She smiled that same warm, infuriatingly gentle smile that had always disarmed him. Stop looking into the mirror. The light around them began to fade. Lydia's outline shimmered, breaking apart into streaks of gold. Elias reached for her, panic rising. No, don't go. You can't hold on to what's already forgiven, she whispered. Her hand brushed his cheek one last time, then dissolved into light. The mirror dimmed to gray. Elias knelt in silence. The world around him was crumbling again, the walls trembling, the glass ceiling cracking. But this time, he didn't fight it. He looked up, tears still glistening in his eyes, and whispered to the fading light, Thank you. Then, As the collapse consumed everything, light, sound, pain, a calm voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. Memory restoration, 100% complete. Subject ready for reintegration. And for the first time in years, Elias Ward smiled. Chapter 6. The Awakening. When Elias opened his eyes, he expected the void. Instead, he saw light, warm, golden, natural light pouring through an open window. He blinked rapidly, disoriented. The air was still, quiet. No hum of machines, no dripping pipes, no sterile walls, just sunlight. He sat up slowly. He was lying on a narrow bed covered in crisp white sheets. The room was simple wood floors, pale walls, a single chair beside the window, and a small table holding a vase of yellow lilies. For the first time in years, there were no mirrors. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed. His hands trembled slightly. The veins beneath his skin looked pale, but real, alive. Then came a voice, soft, calm, distinctly human. "You're awake." Elias turned. A young woman stood in the doorway. She wore a gray uniform, her expression neutral but kind. There was something familiar about her, not her face, but the tone of her presence. Steady, compassionate. He swallowed hard. "Where am I?" She stepped closer, checking the monitors beside the bed. "You're safe, Dr. Ward. You've been unconscious for a very long time." He blinked. "How long?" 21 years. The number hit him like a gunshot. He looked down at his hands again, at the faint tremor running through them. "No, that's not possible. The experiment, the reflection ward, it wasn't even finished." The woman nodded slightly. "It wasn't. You completed it from inside." Elias stared at her, heart racing. "Who are you?" She smiled faintly. "My name is Dr. Kira Lowell. I'm part of the Cognitive Recovery Division. We found you still connected to the reflection core. Your body was preserved, but your mind," she hesitated. "Your mind was gone." Elias's throat tightened. "And now?" "Now, it's back." He pressed his hands against his face. "How?" Kira looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "You did it yourself." She turned toward the table, where a small metal device rested, a neural implant, old and scarred by time. Its surface was etched with his handwriting, Project L. Lydia. The sight of her name made his chest ache. Kira continued, "You designed a recursive loop inside the system. Every time your consciousness fractured, the algorithm rebuilt it memory by memory, guilt by guilt. You weren't trapped, Dr. Ward. You were healing." He stared at the implant, his breath shallow. "So, it worked?" "Yes," she said softly, "but it almost destroyed you." He leaned back against the wall, exhaustion washing over him. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the sound of the breeze moved through the quiet. Then Elias asked the question that had haunted him through every mirror. "Lydia?" Kira met his gaze. There was no pity, only understanding. "Her physical body died that day, Doctor." He closed his eyes. "But before the explosion," Kira added, "you uploaded her neural signature. Her consciousness is still inside the network, preserved within the core, frozen." He opened his eyes again. "You mean she's alive?" "Alive isn't the right word," Kira said gently. "She's aware. She exists as a sustained cognitive echo, the last voice in the reflection system." Elias stood abruptly, gripping the edge of the table. "Then I have to see her." Kira shook her head. "You can't. The system is collapsing. The core survived only because your mind was bound to it. Once you disconnected, The loop began to disintegrate. "I can rebuild it," Elias said. "I designed the architecture. I can—" "Dr. Ward," she interrupted softly. "The reflection ward was shut down 2 decades ago. The government buried your research. They called it inhumane." He froze. Kira's expression softened. "You can't bring her back, Elias. You already tried for 21 years. He sank back into the chair by the window. The sunlight painted his trembling hands gold. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. "Then what now?" he whispered. Kira hesitated, then said, "Now, you live." She walked toward the door, pausing briefly before leaving. "You've carried her ghost long enough." The door clicked shut behind her. Elias sat there in silence. The lilies swayed gently in the sunlight. Outside the window, a single white bird glided past. He closed his eyes. Lydia's voice came to him faint, like wind brushing the edges of memory. "You can't erase pain, Elias. You can only live with it." He smiled weakly. "Then I'll live," he whispered. He stood and approached the window. The world outside was vast hills, trees, light shimmering on a distant lake. He hadn't seen real sunlight in decades, and it made him dizzy. And yet, beneath the beauty, something stirred. A sound. A faint, rhythmic pulse. Drip. His heart stopped. The sound came from behind him, steady, deliberate. He turned slowly. The vase of lilies had cracked down the middle. Water leaked from its side, falling drop by drop onto the wooden floor. Drip, drip, drip. The reflection on the surface of the spill trembled, and in that reflection he saw not himself, but her. Lydia, smiling. The vase shattered completely, the room dissolved, and Elias realized, with horrifying clarity, that he wasn't awake. He was still inside. The voice of the overseer returned smooth, clinical, merciless. "Cycle 21 complete. Initiate next iteration." Elias screamed. The world went white. Chapter 7. The Loop of God. Elias fell through light. Endless, colorless, formless light. No sound, no breath, no time. And then impact. He landed hard on something smooth and cold. His body convulsed, his lungs filling with air that burned like fire. He gasped, clutching his chest. When his eyes finally opened, he saw her. Lydia, standing across from him, dressed in the same white gown she had worn the day she died. The same bloodless perfection, the same impossible calm. He whispered her name as if it might disappear with the sound. "Lydia." She smiled faintly, though her eyes held an emptiness that made his stomach twist. "You always come back here," she said. "You never learn." He blinked. What are you talking about?" She tilted her head. "This is the 21st time you've woken up." Elias froze. "Every time," she continued, her voice soft as glass breaking. "You tell yourself this is real, that you've escaped. You walk through the room, see the lilies, touch the sunlight, and then the vase breaks." "No." Elias backed away, shaking his head. "That's not true. This time was different. I woke up. I spoke to someone, a doctor. She said—" "Kira Lowell," Lydia interrupted gently. "Yes, I know. You made her." "What?" "She's an AI, Elias. A personality fragment designed by you to convince yourself that you'd been freed. You created her every time the loop reset. You always give her a new name. It is Briard." Elias stumbled backward until his spine hit a wall that hadn't been there a moment ago. The mirror wall. He turned, dread flooding his veins. His reflection stared back identical, terrified. "You can't save me," Lydia whispered behind him. He spun around, desperation in his eyes. I can. The system, it still exists. I'll rewrite the neural core, override the fail-safe. You are the fail-safe. The words struck like a gunshot. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the smooth floor. The light shifted behind her, the void reshaping itself into an infinite corridor of mirrors stretching beyond sight. Elias pressed his palms against his temples. No, that's not possible. The Overseer, the network, they're controlling this. The Overseer is you, she said simply. He froze. You created a god, Lydia whispered, and then you gave it your mind. Images flooded his brain, blueprints, code sequences, memory logs, the reflection engine. Primary control node Ward divided by Overseer protocol. He had written it. He was it. He fell to his knees. His fingers clawed at the floor. I don't want this. I didn't mean to, but you did, she said. You made yourself eternal. The mirrors around them began to ripple, showing hundreds of Elias Wards, screaming, running, begging, killing themselves, resurrecting, each in a different iteration. Elias looked up at her. Why are you telling me this? Lydia's face softened. Because you asked me to? He blinked. What? Every cycle. You make me remind you, she said. You tell me to show you the truth when you're ready again. Her voice trembled, for the first time breaking the illusion of serenity. But you're never ready. He rose to his feet slowly, shaking, his voice cracking. Then help me. End it, please. She looked at him with infinite sorrow. I can't. Why not? Because I'm not Lydia. The light dimmed. Her face began to flicker, an image decomposing into digital static. I'm what's left of her. No, you preserved her memory pattern, Elias, but not her soul. You erased that the day you decided to own her mind. The mirrors shook violently. The sound was unbearable, like a million panes of glass being cut from the inside. Lydia's form fractured into light. You don't remember the last words you said to me, do you? He covered his ears, screaming. Stop it! Stop it! You said, if I can't have you, no one can. He froze. The words sliced through him like a blade of truth. His eyes went wide. No, he whispered. You didn't build the reflection engine to heal anyone, she said, her voice echoing through every mirror. You built it to trap me. He fell to his knees. His tears hit the floor like drops of mercury. The corridor of mirrors exploded outward. Each reflection screamed. Lydia's voice filled the void. You made yourself God, and then you damned yourself for it. The mirrors reformed around him, reshaping into a circular room, the mirror room. The first room, the beginning. The drip returned. Drip, drip, drip. The red basin sat in the corner again. The water inside was blood. Cycle 22 initiated, said the Overseer's voice, his voice, but twisted, metallic. Elias staggered to his feet, staring at the endless reflections. No, I won't do it again. The mirrors rippled. The reflections smiled 1,000 copies of him, whispering in unison. Yes, you will. Or Arduce. He ran to the wall, smashing his fists against it. Let me out! The reflections answered together in his voice. Lydia's voice, the Overseer's voice, layered like a choir of madness. You built the world to escape yourself. You built the mirror to erase her. You built the God that will never let you die. The mirrors bent inward. Lydia's fading figure appeared once more now inside the glass, whispering through the cracks. The only way out Elias. He froze. What? Is to forgive yourself. She placed her hand against the mirror. He lifted his trembling palm, pressing it against hers. The glass burned cold under his touch. The reflection of his face warped into something older, sadder, at peace. The overseer's voice began to stutter, glitching like broken code. Cycle, interrupted. Sequence breach. Manual override. The mirrors shattered one last time. Light consumed everything. And for a brief, breathless second, Elias felt weightless. No pain, no noise, no mirrors. Only Lydia's voice, soft and distant, whispering from somewhere that wasn't inside his head anymore. Now, wake up. The world went dark. Chapter 8. The Last Reflection. The first sensation was warmth, not the sterile hum of artificial light, not the suffocating pressure of glass and steel, but warmth. Real, living warmth. Elias opened his eyes to find himself lying in grass. Morning dew glistened on the blades, sunlight stretching across the horizon like the touch of something divine. He sat up slowly. His hands trembled as he brushed the dirt from his sleeves. The air tasted clean. A soft breeze passed through the field, carrying the faint scent of lilies. He turned his head and saw her, Lydia, not as she had been in the machine, flickering, hollow, digital but alive, flesh and blood, her hair moving with the wind, her eyes full of quiet light. She stood beneath a solitary tree on the hill ahead, looking at him with that same gentle half-smile he had memorized and forgotten 1,000 times. He rose to his feet, each step unsure. Lydia. Her name left his lips as if it had waited centuries to be spoken. She said nothing, just watched him approach. The world was impossibly still. When he reached her, he stopped an arm's length away. He was afraid to touch her, afraid that she'd dissolve again, that the illusion would shatter and the mirrors would return. But she didn't move. She only said, softly, "You did it." Elias swallowed hard. "Did what?" "You remembered." His breath caught. The field blurred behind his tears. "So, this is real?" Lydia smiled faintly. "Does it matter?" He looked around. The endless field, the perfect light, the hush of air that seemed too peaceful for the living world. "Is this heaven?" "It's the place your mind built when it finally let go." He closed his eyes. The truth sank deep, slow, merciful. "I'm dead." Lydia nodded slightly. "Your body is, but the part of you that could still love, that could still forgive, that's what made it here." He sank to his knees, his hands trembling. "Then you're not real." "No," she said gently. "I'm not." He looked up at her, his face wet, raw, half-broken. "Then why are you here?" She smiled through tears of her own. "Because you needed me to be." A silence passed between them. Not empty, but sacred. He stared at the horizon. "All that time," he whispered, "I tried to erase my guilt. I thought if I could understand pain, I could control it." Lydia knelt beside him, her voice soft. "Pain isn't something to understand, it's something to feel. That's what makes you human, Elias." He turned to her. "I thought being human was my weakness. It was your salvation." The wind brushed her hair across her face. For the first time in decades or lifetimes, he reached out and tucked a strand behind her ear. His hand didn't pass through her this time. Her skin was warm, real. He smiled faintly. "You forgave me a long time ago." His lips trembled. "Then why did I keep punishing myself?" And Lydia looked at him with eyes full of unbearable tenderness. "Because you couldn't forgive yourself." The words broke him completely. He pressed his forehead against hers, both of them closing their eyes. The air shimmered, as though the world itself was breathing around them. And for the first time since the experiment began, Elias Ward felt peace. When he opened his eyes again, the field was gone. He stood in a vast white room, empty except for one thing: a mirror, perfect, unbroken, silent. He walked toward it slowly. His reflection met him halfway. There was no lag, no distortion, no madness hiding behind the glass. Just him, the man who had built a god, the man who had destroyed love, the man who had forgiven himself. He smiled. "I forgive you," he whispered to his reflection. The mirror rippled once and then shattered, not violently, but peacefully, like a bubble bursting into light. Fragments drifted upward, dissolving into dust, into stars, into everything. Behind him, Lydia's voice came one last time, softer than breath. "Welcome home." He closed his eyes. The light enveloped him completely. Then, silence. No mirrors, no voices, no overseer. Only the quiet heartbeat of something vast and merciful. Far away in the physical world, a nurse walked into a small, dim hospital room. An old man lay on the bed, eyes closed, breathing steady for the first time in years. On the monitor beside him, the neural graph that had once spiked with chaos now traced a perfect rhythm. Peaceful, final. The nurse adjusted his blanket gently. On the nightstand beside him sat a vase of fresh lilies. One petal fell to the floor. She didn't notice that the water inside the vase was perfectly still, no ripple, no reflection. The man's heart monitor emitted a single, clear tone. And then, nothing. Dr. Elias Ward, the architect of the reflection engine, was finally gone. But for an instant, in the reflection of the window, two figures stood together in the sunrise, a man and a woman, hand in hand, walking toward the light. End of